more parents having to work two jobs, and you know, it's more difficult to earn enough economically to support a family, and you know, with the increase of forced overtime, it's to be home and help raise one. So you know, there is no policing solution to crime. You know, it's more money for the police or less money for the police are the only levers the system offers, but it's only when working people can take political power and transform society can we start really addressing the issues that cause crime at the heart of it.
Emily Koski, what steps would you take to address repeat offenders, particularly youth who are involved in carjackings and garage and car thefts?
Thank you for the question. I think for this steps, as your current council member, the things that I've actually already started to do to take steps to decrease and support our youth is, and many of you, I see familiar faces that were at this meeting. I held a public safety meeting where we invited County Attorney Mary Moriarty to come to talk about the partnership that we're taking with MPD and her office. And a lot of this is early intervention, so pre-charge programs that we're doing to support our youth and making sure that they have the support that they need as they continue to develop and grow. So Mary went into depth about some of the programs that she's working on with us. And it's really important for me to make sure that everybody knows and has educated and understands the role and responsibility that we have as at MPD, but also then what is happening at the county. Actually, even today, I don't know if many of you have maybe saw in the paper, there was an article where increase of auto thefts are up 70% in the city of Minneapolis and down 30% in other parts of the city like St. Paul and Ramsey County. And so today actually I brought through a directive to our policy and research department to make sure that we are studying this and understand what tactics that other cities and other municipalities are doing to do this, and hope that we can utilize those tactics here in Minneapolis as well.
And Emily Koski, the next question regarding policing and public safety. The City Council voted against rebuilding the 3rd Precinct building for the Minneapolis Police Department. Some community members want a police presence in the area, while others want community-led safety initiatives. How would you, as City Council member, address your neighborhood's concerns and move this issue forward?
Thank you for the question. So my answer is that we can have both. I think we need to have a vision and a plan for what public safety means for the city of Minneapolis. I envision community safety centers that doesn't just include police, but also incorporates our alternatives to police response. We now have at the city of Minneapolis our behavioral crisis response. We have our community navigators, and I think that we need to have a building that's in the 3rd Precinct, but is a community center and a community safety center that brings in all of these parts of our public safety ecosystem. And this is, I believe, the vision that we need to be moving forward with, because this is what these are the support systems that we have at the city right now, and I want to make sure that we have an ability for all of residents to have access to this community safety center. And like I said, it's not just police, but it's also our alternatives to police there too.
Gabrielle Prosser. The City Council voted against rebuilding the 3rd Precinct building for the Minneapolis Police Department. Some community members want a police presence in the area, while others want community-led safety initiatives. How would you, as a City Council member, address your neighborhood's concerns and move this issue forward?
Well, there is no reforming of the police. You know, it's the police of the capitalist ruling class, and it's the force that they use to enforce their rule on the street. But you know, any idea of abolishing the police too is no way forward, as we've seen the major concern of crime. You know, it's ultimately the only way forward is out of is for working people as we organize and build a mass movement and build confidence that we can replace the police with our own organizations. And this was only possible by working as we organize and build confidence and fight for political power, and a police that would organize based on the morality of working people. But in the meantime, we should hold accountable, you know, police who kill, but there is no reforming of the police under the society.
We're moving into the area now of neighborhood support and welfare. And this may be a little bit of a repeat of your opening statement, but you can go maybe a little further into what neighborhood activities and projects you've been involved in prior to running for office, since this is about neighborhoods. And let's see, who's first? Emily Koski. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Gabrielle Prosser. I told you this might happen. So, yes.
Okay. Well, our campaign is broader than the issues that face us in the neighborhood. That these are really bigger questions than can be solved at a neighborhood level. You know, I've been to picket lines wherever they are. Wherever workers are standing up and fighting back, it's important to show support. We go door to door and talk to workers about what they face, and build build support for working people who are standing up and fighting back. Thank you.
Now, Emily Koski.
Thank you. Prior to becoming a city council member, I was one of those parents of young children that just jumped in and dove into schools, but in the neighborhood as well. So I was born and raised in Northeast Minneapolis, and so there I was on the neighborhood association for Waite Park, where I grew and learned to love neighborhood associations as well there. I was also on the school site council at Waite Park, and then when we moved to South Minneapolis, I also joined the site council for the Hale School and on their PTA as well. I also care deeply about making sure that we're making progress at the state level for our schools, and so I joined our parent legislative committee for Minneapolis Public Schools. And like I said, I coach at Pearl Park whenever I can and have time to help out my kids. Particularly, we've been doing track. So those are a few ways that I have dug in and tried to be a connector and stay connected to the community.
And to save time going forward, I will just say the question one time, but if the second person answering needs to hear it again, just ask, please. Okay. Emily Koski, do you see the neighborhood associations and councils benefiting your ward? Why or why not? How would you address neighborhood association funding?
Thank you, Linda, for that question. As I just said, I was a board member of a neighborhood association in Northeast Minneapolis, and so I really understand the importance of these neighborhood associations and what they do for our community. And now being a council member and going to, there are 5 neighborhood associations that are in Ward 11. And so I make it good practice to go every month as many times as I can. I'm not saying I've been to everyone, but I would say I'm good at about 80% for most of them. But you learn about the importance of the work, and it's all unique. I mean, these are the unique situations and the really important, like boots on the ground issues that our neighbors are facing. And so they are so important for us to make sure that we're continuing to fund. I voted to support the increasing in funding last term, and I will continue to support this funding again. I know in the mayor's recommended budget, we increased the funding for neighborhood associations, and I will be supporting that. But we do need short-term and long-term solutions to make sure that we are continuing to support our neighborhood associations.
Gabrielle Prosser, same question.
Could you repeat the question?
Do you see the neighborhood associations and councils benefiting your ward? Why or why not? How would you address neighborhood association funding?
Well, I'm not super familiar with all the associations and exactly what they do and carry out their work, but you know, this neighborhood association seems like an important way that working people can organize and you know, plan neighborhoods and what needs to be done, and you know, but ultimately, as working people use these organizations more, they can be stronger and can carry out the needs. So I think.
The neighborhood questions are coming in. Gabrielle Prosser. Should Minneapolis create a municipal program to clear snow and ice from sidewalks? Why or why not?
Well, I think that there needs to be a government-funded public works program that can, you know, build the things we need and do the things like clearing sidewalks and building hospitals and schools and housing, and can pay at union scale wages. You know, this way, you know, making more jobs and you know, building the things we need.
Emily Koski.
Thank you. I am not in supportive of a citywide sidewalk clearing program, but I am supportive of making sure that we support some of these small pilot programs and snow removal pilot programs that target our seniors and our disabled community members that have been developed by our Public Works team. I am also open to programs that specifically target our frequent offenders.
Another neighborhood question. What will be done with the vacant buildings at 53rd and Lyndale? It's been years, and in the winter, the sidewalk is never plowed. And that is Emily Koski's question.
Okay, so I just want to understand the question. It's the corner of 53rd and Lyndale?
That's what the question is.
So I believe that we have vacant spaces in Ward 11 that we need to be making sure that we are trying to find all opportunities we possibly can for affordable housing opportunities and making sure that we can increase the opportunities for affordable housing. I've actually gone on ride-alongs with several different developers that develop affordable housing, and I want to make sure that we're increasing those in Ward 11. I will definitely mark this area down. I'm not sure that that one was on my list there, but to make sure that we are taking advantage of any area that we can any area that we can to be able to increase affordable housing in Ward 11.
Gabrielle Prosser.
yeah, I put space to good use, and yeah, people who live in that neighborhood to decide what's needed to go there. Yeah.
Let's move into the housing that makes up those neighborhoods. And this goes to Gabrielle again. What will you do to increase affordable housing in Ward 11?
Well, I think ultimately this is a fight for our unions and to strengthen union power to fight for higher wages and ultimately take on more social questions. We call for a 30-hour work week with no cut in pay to spread the work around. So more people are able to work and get paid enough to afford housing. But ultimately the solution is working people holding political power and organizing society on a different foundation.
Emily Koski.
Thank you. I answered a little bit of this, I think, in the other question, but like I said, I'm really looking at every nook and cranny in Ward 11 where we can increase affordable housing opportunities right here in our neighborhood. And like I said, I've gone on some ride-alongs and have identified a few areas where I know that we can do that work together. Any developer that is going to be developing in Ward 11, I'm encouraging them to utilize our 4D program, which is at least 20% of the building has to be at 60% AMI, meaning area median income. And so those are our firefighters, those are our teachers. And there is a project going up right now, 54th in Chicago, that this developer has said that they will dedicate at least 20% at 60% AMI. Because of his dedication, I helped him identify another site in Ward 11. Many of you may know the old Book Trader building over on the east side of Nokomis, to also utilize our 4D program and to make sure that we have more affordable opportunities here in Ward 11.
An important adjacent piece to housing is traffic. The Minneapolis Streets 2030 plan proposed changes in traffic patterns. As a city council member, would you propose changes to this plan and how it is being implemented? If yes, please explain. And that goes to Emily Koski.
So I do believe that when we think about development and bringing more density into the city, we also need to think about how this is affecting our streets and all of our infrastructure. And so when we think about traffic and how we decide about how we're going to build that infrastructure, we do need to be keeping in consideration our pedestrians and our bikers as well. The one thing that I know is so important to Ward 11 residents is traffic calming measures and really the safety of our streets and making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to make sure that our intersections are safe and that we're not doing anything to put anybody in harm's way.
Gabrielle Prosser.
Well, all of these, the 2030 plan, the 2040 plan, they all are based on this. In the end, their plans are just the profit or budget, but it doesn't take in completely the needs of workers, and reliable transportation is such a necessity. So when working people, when we have the power to organize, it's based on the needs of how to get to work on time, to pick up our kids on time, and that this should be the motor force to these programs.
And about housing, Gabrielle Prosser, how would you as a city council member increase the availability of affordable housing? Would you support rent control? What other options might you suggest?
Well, you know, these are things I've mentioned already, but a government-funded works program that could build housing for, you know, and you know, create jobs, you know, and to build the things we need, like affordable housing.
Emily Koski.
Thank you for the question. I do not believe in a 3% rent control policy, but I do believe there are other ways that we can provide relief for our renters and the ones that need it most. For example, we have Stable Homes, Stable Schools program at the City of Minneapolis. It's a partnership with our Minneapolis Public Schools that gives direct support to our renters. And actually this year we are expanding that program, and I'm so excited to say that Minnie and a few other schools right here in Ward 11 have been included in that program this year. We cannot do anything to deter the slowdown of housing development. And right now we have seen how a rent stabilization policy is doing just that in St. Paul. And I think that's a great example to see that development has slowed, and we cannot do that. In the long run, this will only hurt those who we think we are helping most.
Emily Koski, many homeowning residents have been hit with increased property taxes for things like infrastructure and ash borer, and are struggling to stay in their homes or face displacement. What would you propose to address this issue?
I know that the rising taxes has been a burden on many, many, many people. I started when I was elected a few different community groups, one for our seniors, one for our African American community members, one for our renters, and one for our youth. And I will tell you, our seniors group, this is definitely one of our top issues that we continue to talk about, is the feeling that they're being pushed out of their homes due to the increase in taxes. What I believe, and I'm the chair of the budget committee at the City of Minneapolis right now for our council, is we really need to be taking a solid look and increasing the amount of oversight that we have. So we have a performance management team at the City of Minneapolis that is just getting developed, and we need to really make sure that the programs that we have and are doing are actually things that are working, and making sure that we're evaluating those, because I think there are things that we are continuing to pay for, and we're continuing to increase our taxes, but we really need to take a clear look at what some of these programs that aren't as successful and make sure that we're investing in those that are, but also take away those that are not.
Gabrielle Prosser.
Well, we're opposed to taxes for working people, any income taxes or, you know, this is not a society run on our benefit, and so.
All right, moving on from neighborhoods to the bigger world of climate and funding for climate action. This question in particular comes from our co-sponsor, Community Power. It's being asked at all candidate forums in Minneapolis. Minneapolis's current funding for equitable climate action is about $2 to $3 million annually. Xcel and CenterPoint utility customers pay this as a percentage of their total utility bills. What scale of dedicated funding do you believe is needed to meet Minneapolis's climate goals in an equitable way, and where would you propose this funding should come from? Gabrielle Prosser.
For workers' control of production as the way forward for all environmental questions. You know, land and labor are the sources of all wealth, and capitalism exploits both. Only the working class, we have an interest in defending both land and labor and not exploiting it for profits.
Emily Koski.
Thank you. This is such an important question, and I'm excited to say that the City Council just adopted our 10-year climate and equity plan and our climate legacy initiative. And what's really exciting about this is it triples the funding that we have been giving. You said $2 to $3 million. We are now tripling our funding. But I will also say that this is just the start. And I know that we need to continue to look at our at these fees and making potential increases year to year so that we can to support the demand and the support that we need to be able to do the work that I know we need to do. What's really exciting about this legacy initiative is the funding that's going to go towards our green workforce, because there are so many goals that we have. We want to weatherize so many thousands of homes here in the city and make sure that people are able to electrify their homes, but we cannot do that if we don't have the right workforce. And so this funding will go directly into making sure that we are training and supporting our green workforce.
And again, Emily Koski, what specific metrics would you as a city council member like to see used to determine if the utilities, CenterPoint and Xcel Energy, are working towards the city's climate and equity goals? How would you hold the utilities accountable?
I want to make sure that we are partnering in collaboration with our utilities every step of the way. When we think about these fees that are increasing, we want to make sure that they understand what is happening to their customers, and we need to do that in collaboration with them. We need to make sure that they have their goals are in line with the goals that we have at the City of Minneapolis, and make sure that we are lockstep every step of the way.
Gabrielle Prosser.
Well, by working people having control of the production and by holding by working people holding political power and being able to enforce this.
One more question on climate. So this goes to Gabrielle Prosser. A key strategy of the Minneapolis Climate Equity Plan is to switch heating and appliances from gas to electric due to the indoor pollution, climate impacts, and volatility of natural gas prices during extreme winter storms. How would you go about transitioning our heating and cooling systems and appliances away from natural gas in a way that doesn't leave people or neighborhoods behind?
I'm going to pass on that question.
Emily Koski.
Thank you, Linda. For this question, the way that we are not going to leave people behind is we are going to make sure that these programs, the education, the marketing, the support that we give is directly going to our green zones first. And so we need to make sure that those are dedicated areas in the city of Minneapolis where we know that there are marginalized communities that don't often get this communication and education and have been hurt by the environmental injustices that has happened throughout our city. And so the first step is making sure that we are concentrating all of the work that we're doing first into our green zones.
Let's move on. Who makes plans? City government makes plans. So we're moving into a couple of questions about city government. And so this goes to Emily Koski. As a city council member, you're responsible for both your ward specifically and for the entire city. How will you manage this, especially when priorities conflict?
So I think the first step that I did when I became a council member for Ward 11 was create a strategic plan, and did this in partnership with my team. And what's important about creating a strategic plan is that we set our priorities and our goals for Ward 11. And I learn, and what's in that strategic plan is everything that I'm learning from you. So it's what's important to you. You're about public safety, about taxes, about climate change. All of those pieces are part of our strategic plan. And so we work on goals that we have set, quarter to quarter to make sure we're accomplishing those. But in order to make sure that we're prioritizing our goals and making sure that we are supporting the city as a whole, I'm building relationships with my colleagues and making sure that I understand what their priorities are too. And you may not think this always, but there's a lot of commonality in what we are doing and wanting to accomplish. And so I believe that our community here in Ward 11 doesn't stop at our borders right here. We know and we care deeply about the entire city of Minneapolis. And so that's the type of work that I want to do, is continue to build partnerships with my colleagues and work on the things that we have shared priorities on.
Gabrielle Prosser?
That's, it's the working class and putting forward a working class fighting program, and whatever strengthens our independent organization without compromising on our interests by collaborating with the class that exploits us.
The next couple of questions are classified as general. So I think they're kind of big picture questions. Gabrielle Presser, what do you think are the most important challenges faced by Minneapolis and why? And what would you do to address the challenges? You may have talked about this in your opening remarks, but you can go a little deeper here.
Well, I think working people everywhere need to use our unions to and strengthen our unions to resist and stand up against the intensification of exploitation that's going on against our class. We have everything to gain from supporting the growing resistance. There's been a real change in the winds. More working people are standing up and fighting back. So going to messages of solidarity or to workers who are doing this, and the picket line down on Plymouth, 51 workers are there 24/7. If people go build solidarity for those to keep their confidence up, and that's the road forward, is using our organizations to fight for the things we need.
Emily Koski, same question, if you can remember way back when we started that question.
I think the question was, what are some of the biggest challenges we're facing at the City of Minneapolis? We talked about this already. I would say one of our biggest challenges is public safety, and I know for Ward 11 residents, we are concerned about the combating the increase of juvenile crime and the increase in auto thefts. But I would also say that what Ward 11 cares about and what I care deeply about is our unhoused here in the City of Minneapolis. I don't think there's a day that goes by that we don't think about and the encampments that have continued to grow here in the city of Minneapolis. But I do know that we have solutions. We have solutions like organizations called Avivo Village. It's an organization that is a low barrier shelter in the North Loop of Minneapolis. It is 100 tiny homes that brings wraparound services to our unhoused. And we need to make sure that we are growing the amount of organizations like Avivo Village. And actually just this last week, I worked with Councilmember Chavez, where we were able to secure $1 million of funding for from the city of Minneapolis to give to Avivo Village as they apply for a state grant that could give them $10 million for capital funding to build a second location in South Minneapolis. That's the type of work, that's the type of support that I can continue to do for all of us and all of the unhoused here in Minneapolis.
And another big picture question, this goes to Emily Koski. How will you work with BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color communities to ensure you understand and consider their impacts and needs when making policies? Please be specific.
I described a little bit earlier that when I started this term, I created a few community groups, and one was for renters, one was for our seniors, one was for youth, and one was for Black and African American community members. That is a group that was started because I want to make sure that we're including, and I'm including, BIPOC voices in every decision that I'm making. That is just one example of that I'm doing. I'm also wanting to make sure that we are seeking out those voices, and specifically here in Ward 11, we are predominantly a white community. And so I want to make sure that we are seeking out our BIPOC voices and making sure that they feel that they're being listened to and heard.
Gabrielle Prosser.
Yeah, the working class is one of the most, you could say, diverse sections of the population, and we're all shoulder to shoulder on the factory floor, being exploited by the same bosses, and we'll all be standing together in the fight.
Moving back to city government, Gabrielle Prosser, how is the strong mayor structure working for the council in the city? What would you change?
Well, I think working people should take political power.
And Emily Koski?
So to help everybody understand what the change that happened, but we voted in the last election cycle to have a legislative and executive branch. And yes, some people coin this as the strong mayor system, but really what we voted for was a checks and balance. So what we have now is an executive branch and a legislative branch. This was just adopted. We had been living in a century of a different form of government. And so and I am proud to be able to say that I was part of this initial council that is moving into this new type of government structure. And with any type of change, there is successes and there are challenges. And I would say that right now that we are continuing to work through all of those things. And it's a tremendous amount of change to think about, what this looks like. But really my job on the legislative side is to make sure that we have the oversight. And so, we are creating the policies and the ordinances, and it's the mayor's team that has to execute. But it's us that needs to make sure that it's happening and it's going well. And so as we continue to work through how we are going to, how this new government structure works, I will tell you, I will always be honest with you and continue to keep in touch about the challenges and the successes that we're having.
Emily Koski, people under 35 make up 55% of the city's population. What should the city council do to involve young people in decisions that affect our cities and communities?
Well, I think that our youth and our young people in our city, I'm going to put myself in that camp too, they're a source of inspiration, and we can learn so much from every single demographic, but I definitely think we need to make sure that our youth voices, the future, is at the table. And like I said, I started a youth community group. I didn't tell you if it was successful or not. What happened with that is that I realized very quickly that youth are not going to come to me. They don't want to come and talk to their city council member. And so I said, I'm going to come to you. So I've been going to all of our high schools. I show up at lunchtime. I go table to table. I introduce myself. It's quite awkward. But it's been a really incredible experience to really make sure that I'm listening to youth and make sure that they understand what is a city council member and what does that mean for me. And I want to hear their voice because they matter and they're our future voters.
Gabrielle Prosser.
Well, young people today are facing more and more challenges, from mental health challenges to an inability to start a family or find a good paying job. One of the things that the UAW right now are saying is this tier system. And in 2008, I think it was, they said $19 an hour was starting wage. Well, right now, starting wage is $17 an hour. More than 10 years later, $2 lower. So this is, I think it's really a fight that our unions need to take up for working class, for all of the working class, to strengthen our unions and to fight for a better future to live into.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask this question, because it is on homelessness. How can the city of Minneapolis do a better job of addressing the persistent issue of homelessness and homeless encampments? What would you do as a council member to work towards effective solutions? Gabrielle Prosser.
Well, homelessness is an intrinsic part of capitalism. It's a result of the capitalist social relations, and it's a product of that. This is everyone for themselves. If you get bad luck and you don't have a family to fall back on, this is what people face. So it goes back to working people, building a society that can provide for the mass majority, which is not something that capitalism, which is based on profits and exploitation, can do.
Emily Koski.
Thank you. Our current practice of encampment sweeps without a coordinated effort is not working. I think we've all seen that. We've seen that in the news. And keeping encampments as they are have created an unsafe situation for those residents and for the surrounding communities. But like I said before, we do know and we do have answers to this solution. We know that everyone's story and journey into homelessness is unique, and we must have unique solutions. And I described the Vivo Village as one example, but we have many organizations that also are providing low barrier shelter options and with wraparound services, and we need to continue to invest more in these types of solutions.
I see time is flying by, and so this will be our last question before closing statements. Emily Koski, we're going back to public safety because there were so many questions submitted about this. For 2024, the mayor proposed a $16 million budget and millions more in future years. This is in addition to the base MPD budget. What are your public safety reform spending priorities? How might they differ from the mayor's?
So I would say that my support that I have when we're thinking about alternatives to public safety has been making sure that we're supporting our neighborhood safety department. That encompasses our behavioral response team. I have been a huge advocate of this group and this team. It's a contract that we have with Canopy Roots. I've done a ride-along with them, and they are doing incredible work across the city of Minneapolis for our residents. We need to make sure that we are continuing to increase funding for them so they can continue to have 24/7 service. We also did not have great vans for them. So I did help create and fund so that we can have vans for each of our precincts, for each of our behavioral response areas, and making sure that we do that as well. Another thing that's really important for me is we have one domestic violence navigator in the city of Minneapolis, one. She takes thousands of calls from only one precinct in the city. So I'd really like to make sure that we're taking some of the funding that we have and being able to increase the amount of domestic violence navigators that we have. Thank you.
Gabrielle Prosser.
Well, there is no reforming of the police and their nature. They're the police of the capitalist class. And ultimately, working people need to replace them with our own force, but that can only come out of a mass movement where we take political power, and that this police, whatever it would be called, would organize based on the morality of working people.
And Gabrielle Prosser, it's time for your closing statement.
All right, thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum tonight. The Socialist Workers Campaign is based on working class organizing ourselves independently from the capitalist class who exploit us, and by strengthening our unions and building a labor party that's based on the unions. We live in a class-divided society. Working people who produce all wealth, and the exploiting class who profits from it. And ultimately, working people need to organize to take political power. And this is the only course to addressing the crisis that we see unfolding in front of us today.
Emily Koski, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and also all of the sponsors and neighborhood associations that put this on together tonight. And I just want to thank all of you for being here and spending your evening and wanting to learn and listen a little bit about what the priorities are and what's happening at the city. I think you have heard that there is no shortage of challenges, and I just want you to know that I'm up for the task, and I'm looking forward to continuing our conversations and hope to see you. I love to continue these conversations later tonight, and just a huge thank you again for being here.
On behalf of the Minneapolis League of Women Voters and our co-sponsors, I would like to thank the audience for coming tonight and the internet audience for viewing. We especially thank our candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and being willing to serve our community. The studio and video recording of this forum and all other City Council forums will be available unedited for viewing on the League of Women Voters Minneapolis website. That's lwvmpls.org, lwvmpls.org. Recordings may not be edited or used by candidates or the public for political purposes. Find more nonpartisan information about candidates and about voting at vote411.org. Information on voting and registering to vote can also be found on the Minnesota Secretary of State website, mnvotes, that's with an S, mnvotes.gov. Early voting started September 22nd, and Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th. Please vote. Your voice matters. Thank you.